to have amongst us Ms. Ameera Shah, promoter and executive chairperson, Metropolis Healthcare, who is the driving force behind India's largest diagnostic company. Despite not pursuing medicine like her esteemed parents, Ameera's sharp business acumen transformed her father's single pathology lab into an 11,300 crore international enterprise operating around 7 countries. Her bold and visionary decisions, including taking on a significant personal loan to fuel growth, have made her a true inspiration for aspiring entrepreneurs.
My pleasure, Prathiba. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So as I was like giving the intro, I think that you have inspired a lot of women out there, and I think this question, the first question I have, most of them would have already asked, but I wanted to know like how you have evolved all over this throughout these years. Like, what inspired you to leave a successful career at Goldman Sachs in the US and return to India to lead your family's diagnostic business?
So Prathiba, actually, when I was studying in the US, and obviously when I decided to come back to India, I was actually very inspired by the idea of social capitalism, and Mohammad Yunus was just begin to building Grameen Bank. And the whole concept of doing something capitalistic for profit, but having impact on society, that combination was a big aha moment for me. And I felt like this is amazing and really brings together the two parts of me, which are both very strong, which is about wanting to build something and believing that profit allows you to grow and innovate and do things and make things better. But at the same time, doing it in a sector where you're generally having a positive impact on the world. So it really helped me. And I think healthcare was one of those areas. My parents as doctors were both building their own practices independently. My mother gynecologist and IVF specialist, my father pathologist. So when I came back to India, there was really not a concept of coming back to a family diagnostic center, but it was more about saying, look, I want to come back and make an impact. And then I thought healthcare is a good place to do it. I looked at pathology and gynecology and felt that pathology was more scalable. And therefore, I said, okay, now, what was Dr. Sushil Shah's lab? And he had built a great reputation for himself in Bombay and South Bombay. The idea was to say that, look, can I now build this into a business and actually scale it into an institution, not only in South Bombay, but beyond, and really make it into not only a pan-India, but an international business as well, which stands for not the individual, but for the institutional values. And that's been the journey for the last 23 years. And it's been an amazing journey because there's been lots of ups and downs, but that's how every journey should be. And really, our principles and our values have not changed. They've always been about making sure, number one, everything we do is with integrity. Because at the end of the day, if you are not honest and authentic about what you do, then people can see through that. Second has always been about doing everything with compassion and empathy. Considering healthcare, we can't treat this as any other product industry where you're selling, just a soap, shampoo, food item, luxury clothes, etc. Right? You're really changing people's lives. And having that sense of responsibility and compassion in doing it is very important. And obviously, the third one has always been about whatever we do, we must do accurately, because you can't land up having a negative impact on people's lives. So that's been really the story. I think the evolution has been amazing from, a single lab to where we are today in, more than 600 to 700 cities and towns across India, 5 countries outside India, across Africa, impacting millions and millions of tens of millions of lives every year. And employing about 5,500 people and their families who we impact as well. So I think overall, I would say, and obviously now having so many shareholders. So overall, it's been a good journey. And one, I think we can hold our head up in respect and feel proud.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. You have like brought in everything in a nutshell, like the overall journey. So, how do you integrate your background in economics and your family's medical expertise, like to elevate Metropolis Healthcare into a top diagnostic chain? Like, how do you like the academics is working as work for you or is working for you?
Yeah, I think the medical background, my parents, my sister, the whole family is in medicine. And really, I grew up in a very environment which was very strongly talking about science, integrity, ethics, doing right by the patient. So those values have been always there. I think just growing up in them. I think for me, after taking those values, it's been important to say that, look, how do you still innovate? How do you still build quality? How do you still maintain some of these values, but also accentuate them? And how finally using these things, how do you then build a organization? And often in for-profit businesses, the challenge becomes that, people land up prioritizing profit before everything. And I think what we've done very successfully at Metropolis is really to balance the two. Means to making sure that science and our expertise remains always at the forefront, and we will never compromise that for profit. But also, how do you build an institution that at the end of the day has growth, which is, oxygen for a business to go forward and impact many, many lives across the country. So I think the education and the upbringing helped me actually create a nice balance in this. Otherwise, you will see most doctors don't manage to scale. They manage to build something of good quality, but they stay as a single unit. Because the mindset and the understanding is not there, how to deal with people, how to build processes, how to build an institution. So the background in business actually helped those things. And today, I feel very proud that we are able to, meld the two and create a nice chemistry.
Okay, so now talking about the industry itself, can you share the insights on the current state of the diagnostic industry in India? So, what are the key factors that are driving its growth? And maybe you can touch upon the emerging trends and how it is shaping the market's evolution in terms of share and service offerings.
So, look, I think the industry is at a very interesting point. We've seen this industry continue to grow for many years. And while the organized sector is still only about 15% of the overall industry, we have seen in the last few years a fair number of more organized players come in, especially during COVID time, where people started feeling, oh, this is a great sector to be in, because they thought, oh, there's a lot of money to be made. But what I know very clearly about this industry is you actually don't make money by wanting to make money. You actually have to start with passion and expertise, because it's very hard work in the industry. And you may, if you do it really well, you may land up making money. So I think the biggest challenge I see for some of the new competitors who come in really has been about the focus is too much on wealth creation rather than the passion of the subject. I think the 2-3 trends we'll see. One thing is we are seeing that how, what is going on inside your body has become more relevant for consumers. Earlier, pre-COVID, people used to not think about this much at all. Now, suddenly there's a new wellness part of the whole industry which has developed, which I think is great because it means people are more conscious about what's happening in their body. So that's certainly one consumer health trend, that there is a lot of more awareness about health and your preventive care. I would say the second one is the technology disruption and changes. Actually, not disruption is the wrong word, embracing. So with COVID, we all realized that actually using digitization and technology is very important going forward. And while it had a very small role in healthcare initially, now with the organized players, it has a very large role. So if you look at our own investments in the last 3-4 years, the biggest investments we've made have been in technology. And to really embrace digitization technology from a way that we can change the way we operate and really make ourselves more seamless, more integrated, more consumer friendly, less manual oriented, more automated, etc. That's been another big change, at least for the top few players in the industry. It has happened also for the bottom of the industry, but much less so than the top few players. I would say the third change, which we will see, in the future, is machines and equipment will become smaller and smaller, and there will be more point of care testing that will happen. Today, the reason more point of care testing is not prevalent is because the science doesn't allow it to be as accurate as our very large machines that we have in labs. And it is more expensive. But over time, even though it may stay more expensive, you will find the science getting better there. And I think in few years to come, companies like us will start using a combination of point of care along with the large machines. So that's the third change, I would say. I mean, there are many things. You look in the body, genomics is going to be a very big driver. Everything we do, whether what medicines we take, what food we eat, everything we do finally is going to be connected to the genome in our body and how our genome will respond to that food or that drug. So I think having that information about our DNA will become very
Going ahead, how do you see how has the consumer behavior towards diagnostics have evolved in recent years? I think you've touched upon the COVID, and so are patients becoming more proactive about seeking diagnostic tests, and how has this shift influenced Metropolis Healthcare's business model?
Yeah, I think there are two, three categories. I mean, you're saying that there are, is it enough to do 1 year checkup? Let me tell you, majority of the population never did a 1 year checkup or check their vitals at all. So actually what you're seeing is now a more mass awareness building, at least amongst the upper middle classes, educated people, of saying that, look, ek time saal mein, please do a checkup, do your vitals, etc. That was not there before. So that's one change. Then you're also seeing a smaller group of health obsessed people who are saying that, look, once a year is not enough and I need to now check myself every few months because, I want to find out what's going on. And then you have a smaller group of people who are saying, look, I want to know every day. I have a continuous monitoring device and I want to know what is impacting my sugar, what is, changing things every day. So the reality is that all these devices which we are seeing, whether it's our phones who can do a little bit of testing, or POCT point of care devices, or our Apple watches, or our glucose monitoring devices, all of these things, the level of accuracy today is still not at the same place as the kind of labs that we run. So while some of these things are okay for screening on a day-to-day basis, you can't use them as a confirmatory final diagnosis. For a confirmatory final diagnosis, you still need to come to a lab, give a sample, which is from your veins, and be able to get a test done on these large USFDA approved machines where everything is properly done, have a pathologist see it, and then you will know that's a confirmatory diagnosis. And I think what people do is they misunderstand the difference between screening and confirmation. Right? So that's where people feel, oh, my watch can also do it, or my this can also do it. But you can't rely on that to actually take treatment.
So, what challenges does Metropolis Healthcare face in the early detection of emerging infectious diseases? And this is also a subject which is like in policy making level. Also, they are like thinking soon after COVID. There's so much of talk about it. And what strategies are you implementing to manage large scale outbreaks effectively? I think you've been vocal about it. So, really eager to know more about on this. Yeah.
See, I think, large outbreaks, unfortunately, the question is, are we more prepared as a country today than we were before COVID to really face another COVID? Answer is not really. I mean, after having been through it, probably the next time around, if it is similar, then you'll actually have less fear. You'll have more people probably breaking rules faster because the first time it was more unknown. The second time it will be more known in some ways, right? So there'll be less fear around it. But also what we did see was that very quickly, in a year and a half, we saw private companies come up with quick testing devices. We saw them come up with tests to be done at home, tests to be done in labs. But, unfortunately, I can say the governance is not strong around these areas. So a lot of the devices, for example, the tests which were used at home for COVID, gave almost a 60% non-reliable test result. And we used to see this with patients who would do the test at home and then they would come to do the test in the lab, and there was a huge difference, right? Because the quality, again, like I said, of these tests at home were, those where you take out, you put the urine and you do or the saliva and you do the test, was not giving very accurate results. So I think, a lot of these things are around the governance, around what we are allowing to become mass production, what standard are we allowing to really people to adopt, because at the end of the day it affects people think they're negative and they go on life, and then they have a comorbidity, they may die. So we've got to take these things seriously, which I feel still somewhere is not really there fully in India.
So, adding upon to that, one question I would like to ask about the tuberculosis, because the government has stated that we will end it by very promising 2025. But I mean, it's not possible. We are just in last 2020 is just few months away. So, what do you think that such type of communicable diseases can if the diagnostics industry's role in such kind of initiatives, and how it can be like easily streamlined, or what should be the focus on so that at least we achieve something on this?
If you actually look at HIV, for example, our government created a body called NACO, National AIDS Control Organization, which was done almost, I think, 10, 15 years ago, and has done incredible work. If you actually see in the last 10, 15 years, India, the number of HIV cases was actually beginning to surpass South Africa, which was considered the #1 HIV capital in the world. And while the number has surpassed South Africa, the percentage of population that is actually infected is very small in India compared to what it is in South Africa. So in our, I think we have some 5, 6, 7 million, if I'm not mistaken, HIV positive patients, but the robustness of the program is wonderful. And if the government does the same thing in TB, I'm pretty sure that they'll manage to make great strides in TB as well. There's already good work happening in TB, but obviously, like you rightly said, I don't think it's going to get eradicated by 2000. I think there is a model for the project to happen. And considering most of these diseases are finally impacting societies and a lot of the lower middle class populations and lower income populations, it's actually something that we must impact, because when that happens, one thing is they don't have the resources to manage. Second, they lose a lot of their daily wage because they are sick a lot and cannot manage. And it lands up impacting number of families when these these people pass away because of a deadly disease like that. So, I certainly hope the government is very successful in this project around tuberculosis, because it will impact a lot of lives. Okay. And we are actually supporting them, especially in Maharashtra. We're working very closely with the government on it.
Okay, so my next question was on digital technologies, and I think in the first few questions only you had touched upon, and you said like Metropolis is looking into more of absorbing the new technologies. So in what ways do you think digital health technologies such as remote diagnostics and telemedicine, if you can touch upon that, shaping the future of diagnostics at Metropolis Healthcare? And also if you can tell us like how much of budget is going into the like new technologies. We all talk about AI, ML, a lot of things. How much it is on the ground and how much it is going to help us in the future, near future?
See, I think we have to first remember that AI is data sets have to be very clean, because it's basically data sets put by human beings to say we are doing grouping of knowledge. Excuse me, and then automating the diagnostic or the interpretation if you're using it for technical. So as and when the data sets get clean, I think we can definitely use AI for some kinds of screening for testing. Will it be a confirmatory diagnosis? Maybe not. Maybe you still need a human being to do a confirmatory diagnosis, but we are certainly seeing AI useful in screening. So let's say you have thousands of cases of particular kind of biopsy. Can you use AI to, let's say, do prostate cancer screening? Answer is yes. I would not give it as a confirmatory result, right? But it can definitely make your teams more efficient, make the testing more faster. So those benefits are there. But today it is in few tests, small percentages. It's not, I will definitely not say it's mass. But can we envision maybe 5 years later that this is, becoming a little bit more significant? The answer is yes. Is it going to be majority of the testing? The answer is.
I was asking about like how much of budget goes into the technology part by Metropolis. Like how much do you?
Majority of it actually goes into technology, and that is not only technology, which is AI ML, but also we ended up changing our entire tech stack the last few years. We changed the front end, we changed the back end, we automated a lot of areas. Obviously, we're investing in AI ML, across the board. So we have actually over invested in technology in the last 3 to 4 years, a lot. Probably 60% of our budgets have gone there, specifically in tech.
Anything on the telemedicine side you would like to speak about, like how the future of diagnostic lies in telemedicine or remote diagnostics? Because most of the grassroots level has to be also touched, and I think one way is remote diagnostics and telemedicine. And you're looking into that space, like how big it would be for Metropolis.
The telemedicine you can still do, when you're talking about consultations, etc. Remote diagnostics, really, what does it mean? Because you still need to collect the sample. So what it means is that you can have mobile phlebotomists who go into small towns and villages and collect the sample, but you still need to bring it back to a lab which is close by and do the testing. Unless you take point of care machines and do it locally. But like I said, then your cost is higher and the science is still not there that makes the quality is high. So I think what we are seeing happening is definitely mobile phlebos going into small towns and villages and giving that access to people all across markets. That certainly is happening, mostly by the private sector. The government is also doing PPPs, which are trying to create labs in small towns, etc. But honestly, I have not seen it be effective because usually the government tenders, the minimum standards are poor. The kind of players who get in are not great, and usually it lands up not being effective for the outcome for the patient. But yeah, I mean, we will certainly see tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities and towns get a lot more access to diagnostics in the next 5 years.
One more added up question to this is like whenever we talk about the diagnostic sector, the unorganized players are more. There are more quacks, and only organized sector is very limited. So how do you see this? And this has been like there for like it's been there. So how do we address this? Do you think as an association or like all the organized big players can address this issue because this is there. This has always been there.
The issue of regulation?
No, the unorganized diagnostic small time players who are there, right? It's like everywhere.
See, the issue is not that there is unorganized players everywhere. The issue is there is no governance to guide them and to guide for the industry. The issue is not there. For example, if you had 300,000 players in India who are all compliant and following a minimum standard, there is no problem. It's wonderful for the consumer. Why should we stop that? The problem today is not that. The problem is today out of the 300,000 labs, less than only 2,000 are accredited by NABL, right? So less than 1% is actually accredited by NABL. Everybody else is operating the way they want, which means you have some people doing good things and you have many, unfortunately, not even running controls every day in every batch, which means the consumer gets a wrong report. Right? You don't have quality people doing the tests. You don't have tests being done in some cases. So with that kind of a lack of governance, what is scary is that you don't know whether the consumer report is correct or not. And honestly, the government has a responsibility to fix that, to put some government regulation around minimum standards and then to enforce those standards. That's all I think the industry needs from a perspective of minimum standards. Otherwise, and in that case, if that actually happens, then you will find many of these small players either will have to comply, which means they'll have to increase their costs on quality and quality of people and all of that, or they'll have to shut down. And automatically that will reduce the corruption in the industry, because when they have to invest in quality and good quality people, the less money they can circulate in the market for other wrong reasons.
How do you plan to leverage recent network expansions and improved operational efficiency to maintain and enhance the EBITDA margins beyond financial year 2025, while continuing to drive growth in both core and specialty segments? And any news for us, anything which is happening, which is quite exciting in the upcoming year, if you can just share it with us as well.
So look, I think we are in a very good place. I think we are seeing very good volume growth. We are seeing good revenue growth. We are seeing good EBITDA margin expansion, and all of this is despite the fact that we are in a very strong growth lab expansion phase. So we are seeing a very clear dilution of margin because we've opened so many new labs. About 1% is almost getting diluted of the EBITDA, but despite that, we are doing well, right? So I think we will only continue to expand the margin as we go forward into the next year as well. I think overall, we mentioned that we are pursuing M&A as well. We are looking at some bolt-on acquisitions, some little larger acquisitions, and we've evaluated a lot of the available investments across the country, and there are some good quality ones available, but unfortunately, most of them are not so great quality. So we are being very, very selective with what we potentially buy and where we put our money, because finally, at the end of the day, we have to get a great return from it, and we don't want to be buying businesses where there are a lot of skeletons in the closet. So good quality people, good quality businesses is the only kind that we will partner.